Rolling.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Spinner Rack. I'm here with the boys. I have a special guest star along with Cal and Petey. His name is Professor CA. Say what's rocking, Professor CA.
What's rocking, y'all?
Yo, Petey and Cal, what's going on?
What's up?
What's up? Ready to rock.
So today, news. Jim Lee is, according to CBR, Jim Lee is at the center of DC Comics movies and television. They're trying to make him into the new Feige. They've done this with Jeff Johns, didn't work out. They've tried this with some other studio guys, it hasn't seemed to work out. Now it's all being dropped on our boy Jim Lee. Can he pull it off? Will it work?
Promote him?
Will it work? What do you think? Hey, since Kyle started jumping in on this,
unless he received a really big, unless Jim Lee received a really big promotion, I don't see how this is going to work.
He survived the cutting. So if he survived the cutting
he survived the cutting because he was probably taking a nap and nobody could find him at the time when they were doing the culling. And then when Jim Lee woke up and he was like, all right, let me get back to these commissions. What do you mean Didio's gone? Where's everybody else? What do you mean I gotta work? How am I gonna put out these $20,000 to $50,000 commissions? Oh man. So if Jim Lee's put there, unless all jokes aside, unless Jim Lee has the executive authority of someone like Kevin Feige, I just don't see it happening. Because they were talking about Jeff Johns. Jeff Johns is a writer. Okay, so Jeff Johns can come in and turn in an excellent story for you. But we all know that a lot of these stories don't make it. You know, they don't make it in whole form when it comes time to do the movie. That the director can look and say, yeah, this is a great script. I'm going to take out 130 pages and let's work with these 20 pages right over here, and you'll still get the writing credit, okay? But it's not necessarily the story that this guy came up with in the first place. So Jeff Johns never had the authority to, let's make this call, let's make that call. That's evident in the fact that Ray Fisher decided that he was going to go ham and involve Jeff Johns in it as well. In this, Jim Lee definitely is higher up the pike, but unless he has the authority to say something like, no, okay, Batman is not going to kill anyone. We're not going to have a scene with him choking somebody out or, taking a gun and shooting anybody. Unless he has the authority to say, no, this is how this is going to happen in these particular situations, then, hey, it's a nice jaunt, and I hope he gets paid for it, but I don't see how it's going to make it anything any different.
Whoa, yeah. That's something else. Petey, what's your take on that?
Well, I think at this point, since we've only been able to see when Jeff Johns sort of was there on a small level stuff he could do. Ultimately, Jim is to see how long he lasts. Like the same like Kevin Feige, where you see him start. I think Mars, you was talking about that earlier when we talked about it separately. That he started out on Fantastic Four and all these early movies, and they're hits and misses for Marvel. But then at some point, he slowly makes it into the big name sort of thing. So you have Jim Lee. It just depends on the success rate of DC while he's there. The same difference with sort of Stan Lee, when Stan Lee was in the background on a lot of TV stuff, not really getting stuff happening, but sort of the person that we thought of when we saw these things. Oh, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Oh, executive producer Stan Lee. Wow, and he basically was in the room. So, it's one of those things that if they have successes and he can last, and then he can probably make a difference sort of later down the line. But it is sort of like how Cal was saying, but at the same time, if he's able to last, he has some successes, he could be the guy that's sort of directing the whole thing. So that's sort of how the Hollywood thing works, where you start out as a PA and an assistant, and then later you work your way up to being something big. Or you could be on the other side of it, the person who's the brainchild, like Gene Roddenberry in Star Trek. When the movies, when they finally hit, he was only a creative consultant. He had no sort of say in those movies. But then when it came to giving him the TV show again, he got back into the seat as control in the Next Generation. So just if he survives it, and it's not as turbulent as DC has been all these times, all through this crazy period for them with Justice League and whatnot.
I can only piggy. Professor CA, what's your take on that? Jim Lee.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I'll pull it back a little bit for a little bit of context. One, I'm just really hyped to see all this behind the scenes stuff happening. Thinking about how kind of comics as a platform the two-dimensional version was hated on, but not say hated on, but just like maybe in a very, very, very subculture pocket, to see like the kind of flash of amazing, whoever kind of woke up and realized, oh my God, movies, we're just like a construction that we'll put something through that process. So like, yo, we should be all in these comics because it's all storyboards, right? So it's like, oh, so it's amazing to kind of watch that process. So now like they're rocking hard because there's such parallels between comic books and movies. And so it's really cool to watch people who you admired as writers kind of getting an opportunity to transcend as they get older into different roles that are even more powerful. So like you think of someone like a Jeff Loeb, who's kind of segued from the comic book writing into like becoming a full-fledged like TV producer. And then like Kevin Feige's already been that producer. So now to watch maybe someone like a Jeff Johns try it and maybe it's not the perfect fit in terms of the management skills. There's a whole level of skills that now these writers and producers have to kind of like get. Jeff Johns, I don't really feel made that transition well. Jim Lee, maybe he can. So that's kind of where I'm at. Like, there is a switch from going from an artist to like a manager to a producer to that kind of like running people, having hard conversations, shutting shit down, like doing the kind of the dirty work of that kind of like being a leader. So Jim Lee, keep the doors open. I'm down anytime a comic book veteran kind of can transcend to that next level. I'm happy for them.
I can, Jim Lee. Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm piggybacking. I think that's 100% what you guys have been saying. I think that you have the fact that, look, like I said with PD, being a producer is very tough. Feige has had his success, but people forget that, dude, he's been doing this stuff for so long. I think he was an assistant producer back when they had, Fantastic Four, Fantastic Four. We're talking about the X-Men, we're not even talking about Days of Future Past. We're just talking about X-Men itself. He was started back then. Spider-Man, Daredevil. I mean, some of these films that he did were not critically successful. Punisher didn't do that well. Elektra didn't do that well. Man-Thing. You guys remember that? And it goes back pretty far. Punisher Warzone. They tried it twice. The Hulk. Some of it didn't work. But it took time to learn the industry, learn your system, and get it to make it to become successful. And whereas DC seems to have this issue where they just want to just throw somebody and say, hey, we got to name Jeff Johns, bring him in, and he'll be the supremo. There's much more being a producer. It's making moves. You have to be able to get the financing, get the director, bring the writers in, make sure they're on time, work with the studios, get everything set up. And you have to be able to work with the suits as well as work with the creatives. And that's your key nexus. And the reason they wanted someone like Jeff Johns and someone who's kind of familiar with the material. I'm not saying you have to read everything. There's tons of comics, but it didn't work out as well with Jeff Johns. They had a darker vision. I'm not sure if it was his or Zack Snyder's vision that was that ultimately won out. It looks more like Zack Snyder's for me, with Jeff Johns approving a lot of that stuff. But I like Jim Lee. Jim Lee, I like his stance, the way he does a lot of his comics. He seems like a very positive. I think he understands the need, the necessity to bring things together. But the question is, does he have the strength and will he have the power to be able to say, hey, A does that, like Kyle was saying, will he be able to have the executive position to do what needs to be done? Because in the end run, if he can't do that, then you know what? They're going to have the same type of debacle they've been having from before. I mean, we see DC, we see the Snyder Cut with one Batman. They have another Batman coming up. They have a Joker with Joaquin Phoenix. Doesn't seem to be connected to anything else. You still have the Snyder Cut stuff in Wonder Woman and Aquaman and possibly the Flash, and Zack Snyder still executive producing. So it seems like it's all over the damn place with these guys. Black Adam seems to be theoretically doing his own thing, but where's Henry Cavill? Where's Superman? So I hope that they're able to get someone of his caliber. Jim Lee has been around in the executive suite for quite a while. He is the publisher, and I'm hoping that could translate. So I'm with you, Professor CA. I'm crossing my fingers. I'm crossing my toes. I'm crossing my eyes right now to hopefully he can pull that sucker off, So, big thumbs up. Anything you can do. I mean, he survived that bloodletting. That's another thing too. I didn't think he was going to make it, but he survived. Now they're picking him up. So
kill what you can't
By the
find.
way, Jim, our resume is going to be coming to you. Okay. So anything else, gents?
Well, since we're talking about Jeff Johns,
We're not torching Jeff. It's done. He's out.
no, that was. I mean, look, that situation that he got called in for Justice League. If that, I mean, look at the situation of him working on Justice League as opposed to him working on, say, Green Lantern or the more recent Stargirl.
Right.
And I think the situations are different at the end of the day. If you're going to bring them into it, okay, at the very least, if we're going to provide context, then provide the whole thing at that portion, because the situation he's dealing with on Stargirl isn't with the same situations of either of those other two, and he's much more successful there than is with the other two. I mean, I don't think Jeff Johns could have come into Justice League and said, well, hey, these are things that need to happen or should happen. And we all know that Zack Snyder still had the final say on stuff that was going to go out. So much, it was the Whedon cut. Yeah, if Snyder didn't want it to happen, it wasn't going to happen. He still had the final say. That's pretty obvious when we saw the final, what is it, the 4-hour final cut online. If See, I don't really know what Jim Lee has always struck me as a company man, and I don't know what Jim Lee's core is when it comes to these characters. Jim Lee, for the most part, has given us some top-level, top-notch art on some really nice stories, great covers. And I've said this before. I said on Jim Lee's laziest day, when he's doing art, and I'm like, wow, he really phoned this in. That's not a foot. He doesn't even want to draw the feet. He's hiding it behind a rock. He'd rather draw the detail on a rock than draw a foot. As much criticism as I can lay at Jim Lee's feet, he's still on his worst day better than 99% of the guys doing art out there. He's still that good. He has not lost any of his potency when it comes to his art. So that's where I know Jim Lee. In terms of Jim Lee, the guy who's a publisher, and his core when it comes to these characters, I have no idea, because Jim Lee he's still part and parcel of that New 52 debacle that we had in 2011, where these characters were running all over the place. Then you've got the DC universe right now, which is very reminiscent of the Marvel universe in film before they got it together. It was just stuff all over the place. You got an Electro movie here. Okay, you got a Swamp Thing movie over here. You got Punisher movies with 2 different actors in 2 different movies. Might have well been 2 different things at the port. The only big difference is that because there is a healthy appetite for superheroes in these adventures, the DC movies are making money. And so people are going to excuse a whole bunch of stuff as long as the money is there. I guess, you got to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's been in comics for a long period of time. I still remember, but, I think about I know the Didio was taking most of the heat as a publisher, even though I know Jim Lee had a very healthy hand in the New 52 stuff. And if that's the stuff that's going to come over with him being there, then again, it's going to be another 5 to 8 year wait for me. And hopefully I got to keep myself healthy, take my vitamins so I can live long enough to see some good films. If he comes into it and says, look, these characters have a resonance that has lasted so long because of these particular elements, and these elements need to be here. And he can say, no, this is not going if these elements are not here. It's not going to work. We've already done this. We got to do this the right way, at least before we want to branch out of it. We have to have that foundation, and he can do that. He's the guy who can actually put his foot down and say, no, we got to do these things. And he can still navigate the stuff that Jeff Johns wasn't able to navigate in terms of working with other people. Then yeah, we got a lot of good stuff to look forward to. But I have come to learn that just because this person has been in comics for X amount of years, or even because they love comics and the characters for X amount of years, doesn't mean if they don't have that authority, and if they're not willing to really champion the virtue of the comics. If there's one of these people who are like, oh, we can't do that. We can't put Wolverine in a yellow and blue suit. It's a comic book. We got to put him in this leather, zip it down, show the chest hair. If that's where he's going to come at, just totally sell out as a company, man.
Why are you calling him a sellout? I mean, I don't understand why
I didn't call him a sellout. I said if. I said if. I did not call him a sellout. I said if he goes one way, I think we've got a really good future with the movies. If he goes the other way, then we'll have another 5 to 8 year, bunch of string of films, and they'll try again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the difference between DC and Marvel is that now, especially the AT&T's bought DC, is that the leadership seems to be a little. It's not like how Disney. You now have Feige running everything. At one point, you had Marvel, and you had the whole. What's the name of the dude again who was running Marvel TV separately, Permulator, and what was the name of that guy? Jeff Loeb, and then you had the movies being run by uh, by Feige, and Feige was pretty successful on that end, as opposed to the TV shows weren't quite as successful. You know, there was still some interesting stuff because Marvel TV had the Daredevil, it had Luke Cage, it had Punisher, it had Jessica Jones.
History and saying they had minimal hits, like those, they had successes.
Yeah, they did.
They did have some successes. They didn't have as much as like we all know the Humans didn't work out at all. That was a big flop for them. And but the point I'm trying to get to
one out of the 5.
Yeah, I mean there's other, but the point I'm trying to make is
seasons of the what's that thing?
Agents of Shield has been going on for a while, and you know
one movie that was kind of forced through by everyone blames Ike for that, and everything else was a success until DC. Yeah, everything went back to Marvel, and then they started to say, well, Netflix is like, all right, we're just kind of we're moving out of this. We're stepping away. It wasn't like, hey, we're stopping this because we're not making any money. They had 3 seasons of Daredevil, 2 seasons of what's the name? They have a ton of things. They were the belle of the Comic-Con and whatnot. That sort of thing. It was a success.
And Daredevil will be reintroduced into the MCU after the Spider-Man film and probably some of the others. But the point I'm trying to get to is that, you know, DC now has also a splinter thing where you have the Warner Media stuff, you know, where it's run by like Walter Hamada, and then you also have this stuff, the HBO Max stuff. So like Stargirl isn't in the Warner Media because that's the movies, and then you have HBO Max. Stargirl, which is a success, is on the HBO Max. So, you know, Jeff Johns seems to have worked well with the Stargirl stuff, but the movie stuff, there's a different type of relationship going on there. I mean, and you've said this in the past, Petey, that movie guys do their own thing. You know, the director comes in, he said, I don't care what the other director did, I'm doing this. I don't care what they wrote, I'm doing my own thing. And so, whereas TV guys will probably tend to be a little bit more cognizant of the history that's gone before it and try to incorporate it because they need as much stuff as possible because they have to write all these episodes.
Well, Johns, I would just interject that the problem with Johns is not what he did or didn't.
Not problem. Let's not say problem. Let's say,
what I'm saying.
We're not using the word problem. We're not using negative words. We're using positive words. Okay.
It's not about that. It's about that he had 5 checks coming in. He had his creator check.
Yes.
CFO check.
Too much money.
And he had his movie check, and then he gets Stargirl. He had to be the first one. They took that job away from him because he's getting extra money from the Doomsday Clock. He's getting royalties from Doomsday Clock.
Don't be hating people because they pop in checks, baby. All right? He showed
you got to cut his office, his day job check because he's making more money than they can afford to pay him. They don't need to pay him a day job for the CFO and the controlling the characters at DC when he's making a ton of money at wasn't it? They can get anyone who can do that job. So it's like you made a ton of money for all those rebirth things and probably every hand he had in there. They had to take some jobs away from him. He's making too much money. And then they say, hey, we're not taking everything away from you. We're giving you Stargirl. You can then go and do whatever you want afterwards. Or you can stay with us and you can do more Stargirl, more TV shows as writer/director or create or being the David Chase of the projects he works on for DC. That's a good change. That's not like a demotion.
Are you implying it's like conflict of interest there, Petey?
No, there's no conflict no, there's no conflict of interest. That's not what he's implying. He misspoke. He gave that impression.
I'm taking all this money in. I need to get my day job. I need to get my royalties. I can be late on my comic projects because I'm getting all these royalties.
3 Jokers was a great comic book, so don't even go there, bro. Don't even go there.
I don't know that those were late too.
No, those were on time, but they weren't great.
They were great. It was one of the top-selling comic books of the year. So bite your tongue, pal. Okay?
What you gonna do now? You gonna bring out the Rotten Tomatoes numbers? You know, come on. Sales do not make a comic book good. It wasn't that good.
Of course, sales make a comic because people buy it and because they like it. If they didn't like it, they wouldn't buy it. Okay.
You're kidding me.
I'm saying they didn't take his job away from writing comic books. He's gonna make a ton of money from that, and then he'll do his TV shows.
He has an excellent vision from Flashpoint to Green Lantern, Stargirl. He's done 3 Jokers. You know, just because he came a little late because of Doomsday Clock, and you guys want to hold that against the guy, bite your doggone.
Doomsday Clock was late because he was doing all that other stuff.
Oh.
Look, we've digressed. Clearly, we're not talking about that anymore. Wipe that board.
No, we're not, because Jim Lee was the guy who was running. No, Jeff Johns was the guy who was doing it before, and Jim Lee's now the guy. Now,
we're talking about Jim Lee. We're talking about
Jim Lee can't take those 3-day naps anymore, and he can't have those commissions, or else we're going to have the same thing that we have now. Right? Same thing with Jeff Johns. Jeff Johns went and turned in that. Jeff Johns, if he was another writer, they would have sacked him off that story and put somebody else there. That story was, Rebirth on DC was that was a hit. It was selling. And it was supposed to be a 2-year storyline, and it never completely wrapped up because Jeff Johns was over here doing Justice League. He's over here doing Stargirl. He's doing this other, nobody was able to tell him, look, dude, you need to come back over here and finish this. They were like, no, it's Jeff Johns, so he's going to get that time. What's more, everything marched along even while Doomsday Clock was late, and Jeff Johns' stuff was still important enough. They were like, well, we can't get rid of it. Okay, it sold well. People went to it, can't get rid of it. So that was part of the problem where Petey comes there. He was like a Matt Lauer without the sexual allegations. Like, you're making too much money, so we can get rid of you over here. We can just push you off to the side over here. We can save some of this money. We can also make you a little bit more effective at the end of the day as well. But in total fairness to Jeff Johns, I'll say the same thing about him that I said for Jim Lee. This guy is probably better than the average writer on his worst day. He turns in some good stuff. And when he's able to have a little bit more focus, you get Stargirl, which without a doubt, that's a bona fide hit. A lot of people like it. And it really does hang a lot closer to the stuff that I appreciate about superheroes. So, it's not that he couldn't or what have you, but definitely spread thin and definitely happy to cash all of the checks.
Look, this money,
all the checks from the spread thinning.
This talk about his cash is just digressing from the fact. Look, he's going to be one of the exec producers, one of the producers on Flashpoint. Stargirl's a hit. He's going to be one of the producers on Green Lantern. He had a good run on that. Okay, so let's look forward to what's going on and what he's going to do. Okay,
hey, CA, you know what Jeff Johns was when Doomsday Clock was late?
Say again.
Do you know what Jeff Johns was when Doomsday Clock was late?
No.
He was stacking paper from the floor to the ceiling. That's where he was because he wasn't doing any writing. That's why the book was late.
You're doing the alley-oop there. Yo, I'm not hating on anybody who's coming to it with a West Indian work ethic. Okay. Isn't Jeff Johns like half Jamaican or something? Or mom from Guyana or something? No? I thought I heard that.
I'm just saying the CFO job, he's not doing anything on that one. The CFO job, he's just chilling. He's just like saying, coming to the meetings. He was the first on the Zoom call during that. He's like, have just a picture.
Jeff Johns. That's a Jamaican name if I've ever heard one. Here it comes, Jeff Johns.
Jeff Johns.
Jeff Johns, come down.
He's of Lebanese descent. Okay, so look.
Lebanese Guyanese.
Those guys are everywhere in the world. Wherever you go in the world, I've met Lebanese. Okay, so it's like they're everywhere.
He's a Lebanese Jamaican.
No, he's of Lebanese descent. So look. So overall, we've strayed once again from talking about Jim Lee to taking pot shots at Jeff Johns. We shouldn't be focused on how many people are.
There were some shots at Jim Lee in this one too. We took some shots that Cal took at Jim Lee. So
I have to remind
I can take some more if you like.
No, I have to constantly remind you guys that we do have resumes in there. Okay, and I don't know if you noticed, but they're not going to be picked up if you keep slamming the guys who are going to be choosing those things eventually. Okay, so
I've already said that we are an above board, and critically honest show until we get on. Now, once we get on, I'm not talking like this anymore. Okay, everybody's my friend. I'm using totally PC language. I'm not taking shots at anybody because then I'm going to be cashing checks, stacking paper from the floor to the ceiling, just like Jeff Johns, while Doomsday Clock was late. But until then, I get to be my own man, to be honest.
Hey, does anybody else have anything to say before we close out this segment? Petey?
I have nothing.
What about something positive? Can you just throw a little positivity since you
I didn't
helped
say anything negative about
as opposed to throwing this whole
I didn't say anything
rock in the
about
puddle?
him in the job. I said that the chances that he, as long as he can sort of stay in there and things become successful, who knows? He could start showing up in the movies like he'll be the new Stan Lee for the DC films. They start seeing Stan Lee in those movies.
I like you
give,
ending it
I can give
positive.
you
What
something
about you,
positive.
Professor CA? We're not going with you, Cal. What about you, Professor? Any positivity here, bro?
I can do
There's
positive.
always positivity. What you saying,
I can
Cal?
do positive.
Nah, can you? Yeah.
Yes, I can do positive. Go ahead, you do your positive. When you're done, I'll show you positive. Go ahead, I'll do
All
positive.
right, cool, man. Look, man, big ups to creators who are leveling up. Keep leveling up. They had you just like buying your creations, and now you can actually maybe potentially get points on films. Do your thing. Grab that bag. Grab that bag, y'all.
Thank you. You see, now that's positivity. Let's see what kind of madness you're gonna throw out here, Cal.
No, the one thing I will say, Jeff Johns. Jim Lee has a very long, very storied career in comics. Without a doubt, this is someone who loves what he does and loves comic books, loves superheroes. So as long as we have someone like that on the side, who's trying to get things done, there's always a good chance that we're going to see some really positive and entertaining production coming down the pipe. And if that alone is reason for us to be very optimistic as to what's going to happen with Jim Lee out.
Okay, I like that. This is where I like to end the show. So
bring back the money.
I said as long as he focuses.
I'm not getting that money. No, the hell with this.
As long as
Jim Lee is a no.
As long as he focuses on getting that on, and he has the power to do what needs to be done, I think this is going to be a successful partnership, and we all agree with that. Okay, and Jeff Johns, we give him big thumbs up, and probably things will work out with him in the other realm. Spinnerack
out.
Comment and subscribe.